Here we go. Starting. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Think Sacred podcast. My name is Zach, and today I am joined here by Corey. How's it going, Corey?
I'm doing all right. Not bad.
Yeah, Phil's on vacation again. He goes on vacation once a month, it seems like. And so, we decided that, we're going to keep having guests on like we had with KT. So now the funny thing is, Corey, you had kind of just like, there was one day you were picking up my girlfriend from work, right? Yeah. And I said I was going to be late getting home. And I had told you, the reason is because I'm working on my podcast with my dad, and that piqued your interest, right?
Yeah, it did.
Like, what happened there? Why did it pique your interest?
I don't know. I mean, you had kind of explained what the podcast was and how you guys were going about it, and it actually took me. I don't know why I needed to build up the courage to ask you where I could find it, but there were a few weeks where I was like, I wanted to listen to it, and I didn't really know how to ask about it, but yeah, and then, a couple weeks ago, you told me where to find it, and I watched a couple episodes, and immediately I was like, I might be able to have some different perspective than what you guys are used to, so.
Well, the funny thing is, you and I had a few, not a lot, but a few theological, philosophical discussions while we were just hanging out and, at my house, and, we were just, and they were good and everything. And there was one moment you said I had blown your mind.
I think it was when you were talking about how we were talking about death and stuff, and it was and the conversation had been deep prior to that, but it was you had said no one would say that death is an enemy or a villain or anything, but it's like you wouldn't say that a tornado, when it goes through and kills people, is a villain. It's just a part of nature, and that will stick with me for a long time. And it was crazy that night because it really was oh my gosh, I've never thought that way about death before, and death in general is a very weird subject for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with loss before. I've lost family members and stuff, but yeah, it was just it was something that kind of just clicked, and it was you wouldn't call death is not evil for taking the people we love. It just happens. Everybody dies.
Well, like I said, I think I told you, it's a piece of nature. Well, like you said, a tornado. A tornado comes and rips through your house. You don't blame the tornado,
right?
You know what I mean? And so, anyways, so interestingly, right? So we've had those conversations, and then you had said you thought that you had kind of something to say. That's kind of why you wanted to come on the podcast and everything like that. Is what interests you the most out of the things that we've talked about already, or something like that?
Do you mean what you guys have talked about on the podcast, or what we have conversed about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess both. I guess both. Yeah. I mean, I guess when you're listening to the podcast, you hear me and my dad talking, it's what kind of stuff intrigues you and makes you want to get into the conversation as well?
I guess I enjoy it because so to preface my answer, a lot of my experience within the church, and just to clarify for the viewers what my perspective is here is, I don't consider myself an atheist. I consider myself more agnostic than anything. Basically that there is no way to prove a higher power, and which is where faith comes from. But I enjoy watching it because neither of you go about it from the perspective that I was so used to growing up in the churches that I have attended, where a lot of it was almost like fear mongering, where it was hey, if you don't do these things, you're gonna go to hell, and that's kind of where it goes, and which there are several. There are several issues that I not issues that I think about as far as where Christianity is, specifically American Christianity, has gone in today's day and age.
Yeah.
So,
you heard on that last podcast. Actually, Dad said it a few times that he doesn't trust churches.
Right. Yeah. He was saying. Yeah. He did say that. He said he was very
But he does attend church regularly as well.
Right, which is interesting to say the least, and I think it shows how kind of like you guys are just going about it in the right way, where you're very open minded to each other's opinions, and like that. Whereas in today, it's hard to come by the conversations that you can have where it doesn't turn into everybody gets offended by everything.
I hate to keep bringing up the subject. It's like Charlie Kirk, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. You say the wrong thing, and somebody's gonna come shoot you. You know
right.
What I mean?
And
that's a real fear.
Yeah, it really is today, and it's crazy that I mean things are bad all over the world, but like we live in America, we focus on America first, obviously, and it is crazy how in turmoil everything is, it seems, right? Like how speaking your mind and encouraging social discourse like we've done for so long now, in today's day and age, it can get you killed, right? Like it's wild to think about. And you have people, do you know who the streamer Destiny is? Do you know who that is?
Who's that?
So he's a very, very left-wing commentator, streamer, whatever. Like if you know who Nick Fuentes is, on the right,
we've talked about him.
Destiny's kind of him on the left, basically.
You mean the guy that Asmongold has is constantly? He talks about
yeah.
Talks
about Destiny all the
I've
time,
never actually watched Destiny's stuff on its own, but I've watched Asmongold comment on Destiny's stuff.
Yeah, I don't tend to watch his stuff because his takes are wild to me.
But, just full on like. Basically calling for violence, right?
Literally, like inciting violence against people. And he even said, regarding the whole Charlie Kirk stuff, is like he quote verbatim was like, we need the right side to be scared, basically, right? Yeah. We need them to think about when they're going and saying these things, to think about what the consequences could be, and talking about what happened to Charlie. And it's just like how have we come to that point where we have people who are so comfortable saying that, but not comfortable just having a back and forth discourse?
But it's so funny if you look back in history too. That's the side that tries to silence people is always the side that loses. Mm-hmm. It's always the people, right. and lots of people die for their freedom of speech. I would say, Jesus is one of them, right? Jesus is a guy who. Basically was just speaking the truth and talking to people and everything, like, right? Because remember, at one point in the Bible, he's actually like at the tax people's house, and the Pharisees come and they tell him, oh, you're with a bunch of sinners, you shouldn't be talking to them. You know what I mean? And it's like that. It's like you're talking to the wrong people, so they're gonna kill you for it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
When in his perspective, there was no one wrong to talk to about his truth, right? Like he was all of. He ate with prostitutes and different criminals of all sorts of backgrounds. About his truth, which that is one thing I can say, is that, like, even though yes I am agnostic, I do believe that there is something out there. I believe there is some sort of higher power. I just don't think. I think it's very nuanced. I think I have never personally read the Bible cover to cover. I have looked at specific scriptures, and I've looked at examples of where you could apply those scriptures to real life, and I have nothing wrong with that. Like I think that's like you've said on your podcast a couple of times. Like at the end of the day, when you come across like a very difficult situation, right, you have to boil it down to its basic component, right? And that's kind of how you go about with I feel like you and your dad both go about, even from your philosophical standpoint and from his theological standpoint, you have to start by boiling it down to like its bare minimum. Right?
Like life is like infinitely complex, right? There's like just numerous amount of things that are happening all the time around you that you just don't even realize. I mean, between you and me, there's like right here in this distance, I'm saying literally between me and him, there's literally like millions of atoms, right? Now each atom is moving in a different direction, and we don't know how those things affect us, right? Like, I mean, the table's made up of atoms, made up of thousands of atoms, and just because there's like 5 atoms missing here that should have been there or something, we don't know how that's gonna like affect the wave of like life, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it seems stupid because I'm talking about really, really small things, but really small things make big waves. It's the whole butterfly effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the world, and then a storm,
tsunami happens on
this side of the world. right? So it may seem like I'm talking about something small, but really you don't know how that stuff affects us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyways, but so you're talking a little bit about about your ideas and how you look at the church and everything, but history-wise, if you don't mind skipping into it, you kind of grew up a little bit more and like going to church and stuff. Did you do that?
Not really. So both my mom and dad, my mom and dad, nothing against them by any means, but they were not ready to have kids, let alone twin. I have a twin sister, and
oh, you have a twin sister.
I have a twin sister.
I knew you had a sibling. I didn't realize it was a twin.
Yeah, I have a twin sister, and so like not only were they not ready for kids, but let alone two at the same time, and so it was very like I mean they did what they could, but church was not a big part of my childhood. Now I had family members who we would go to church with sometimes, and but it was never something that I felt like convicted to go. I was never like it was never something that like my parents necessarily encouraged. But there was a time, probably I don't know, I was in like 8th grade, 9th grade maybe, and I decided to try to go to church, and there for a long time I felt like I was subscribed to those beliefs, and but as I got older and as I kind of started forming my own opinions and looking back on it, it was very much from a scared standpoint. It was not because I felt like the love of people, the church, whatever. It was very much like, hey, if you don't do this, you're gonna go spend eternity in a lake of fire, and like that scared me as a kid, right? Like that was really scary to think about, and so now it's like what makes sense to me as far as where all those beliefs come from is like I couldn't even tell you what I think is right. I don't know what is right, because but when God is described as all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, this pure being,
you
right?
got these three things, those are the three aspects.
There are a lot of things that from that don't make a ton of sense to me. Like if he is all powerful and all-knowing, then he knows where we're going to end up, and he has the ability to change the course of direction that someone's on. And
well, we had already talked. We've talked about this many times. It's a core part of the podcast itself, and it comes up very, very frequently. The idea of God's sovereignty versus man's free will, right? Right. Now, you'd listened to the one with Callahan, right? Or
a little bit of it, yeah. I didn't watch it all the way through, but yes, I watched.
He had talked about a street preacher that I had seen too, and the street preacher actually puts forth the idea that what God does is God actually lessens his power in order to give us free will. Now, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think that sounds ridiculous. It sounds like it's something, kind of weird. Although I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you can sit and think about it for a little while. But I mean, in general, I don't like that argument and everything like that. And so I end up coming to the same problem you have, right? That, and my conclusion usually is, well, God's all sovereign then, and so then all those, like one thing is a lot of people that are non-believers, they like to say, oh, look at all the evils that happen in the world. There's a kid over in Africa that's like born with cancer, and dies after like 2 years or something like that. And the thing of it is, it's like that happening has like a purpose in God's, like, his sovereignty. That's my conclusion. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to say exactly what it is, you know what I mean? No. But the conclusion is God's sovereignty rules overall, and once again, I don't like this argument, but Callahan brought up the whole the potter can do with the clay pot what he wants. I do not like that. Sure. I do not like that. Yeah. That's not something that I personally like and believe. Right. I tend to believe, it's more of a I think I had said to Phil, there's a lot of stories in the Bible. What it seems like God is doing is he's shaping people to do certain things, right? So he's, he puts you in the furnace, you know what I mean? He gives you a hardship, so that way he beats out, in your soul to become the person that you're going to be, and then basically you become that person, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I know you guys in the one that came out a couple days ago, you guys were talking about like the screw tape letters, right? Which is a very, which I didn't know what that was prior to hearing it on the podcast.
Oh, really?
And so I went and looked, and that is that was a very interesting read about a synopsis about a book I've never read, but
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis. But that kind of brought a whole new perspective, which I know you specifically stated in the podcast, like that is not based on the Bible. Like there is not that stuff is not in the Bible.
Well, I love the Divine Comedy. I love Dante's Inferno. Inferno. It's so good. Yeah. And especially I even love that. I love that anime one that came off based on video game. The video game, like a while ago.
Yeah, I played the video game when I was younger, so
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, in no way is it mentioned in the Bible. In no way is it like, you know, like in the book, like the devil has 3 people in his mouth, right? He's got Caesar, he's got Judas, and then he's got some other guy, and the guy is like a personal person that the person who wrote the book like knew or something like that, you know, like in the actual book, he's basically just talking about a bunch of people that he knows in real life. You know? So it's really, it's definitely not biblical. Yeah. And I would say the same thing with screw tape letters. Like C.S. Lewis is amazing. He's got great arguments, great things that he talks about and everything. But just take it with a pinch of salt that's not really, because I have a hard time with the devil in the Bible. You know what I mean? Because I don't like a lot of people's conclusion that he's this bad man that's trying to trick you and everything like that. Like a lot of people use him as an excuse for why we sin or why we do something stupid. You know what I mean? And it's like,
well, it can go back to like the same argument, right? Is like if the devil is the cause of so many bad things happening in the world, and God is all powerful, we have to go back to God being fully sovereign, right? Where it's where God may have the power to keep those things from happening, but chooses not to for whatever reason, right? Yeah. And which, you know, if there is a God above, then who are we as people, as essentially peons, if you want to call us that, right? Like, who are we to question that?
Even smaller. Like that's one thing that kills me about when you realize how big the universe really is. Have you seen those videos like where they'll show, like they'll start with the Earth and then they'll show the sun,
and then they go
up
to
and then they'll show the galaxy. They'll show other suns that are just massive, like way bigger. And by the time you zoom out and you're actually at the universe scale, it's like, I mean, Jesus criminy, we're so small. I mean, like
that was I think I had that, and if you call it like an existential crisis or whatever. But when I was like, I don't know, I was probably like 16, 17. I think I was closer to 18. I had just graduated high school, and I had spent a night looking into all that and like realizing how small we are in the universe. And it's like that, like, why, if the universe is that large, which we I mean, based off what we can see in life, right? We know it is that large, right? But why is, it was another thing where I kind of questioned, like why just us in this whole big universe that God had spent so much time creating? Why one small speck of it where there's civilization who the very large majority of people don't believe in him, right? That's kind of another thing where I'm like it was getting into the whole, like, which I think you had said, like, you don't necessarily agree with like the whole predestination thing, like that's, or do you think that's,
man? Yeah, I don't. It's still one that I'm still arguing with in my head. You know what I mean? Yeah, it just goes back to the whole God sovereignty thing. Yeah. It's like I'm still arguing with it in my head, and you know, I've got some arguments going both ways. But you know, continue with what you're saying.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I pretty much finished. It was just it was another one of those things where I had really started to kind of move away from the beliefs of. And it's hard for me to even say that they were beliefs, because it wasn't something that I felt convicted about. It really did come from a place of like fear. And I remember
going back to that. You keep bringing that up, and I've actually, like, I have this is gonna sound, I've made it very clear to myself, you know, when because sometimes I do philosophy, and when I'm doing it by myself, like I push myself pretty hard to the point where most people say what I'm doing is crazy, right?
Right.
Like when you're actually doing that real level of philosophy, Jordan Peterson talks about it. You split your personality in two, and you have two people in your mind that are arguing against each other, right?
Yeah.
And I've done that before, and very recently I said fear is not a motivator for me. Fear will not motivate me.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you scare me. It does not matter. Fear will not get me to believe in anything. Right. Fear will not get me to it'll only get me to do so much.
Right. Exactly. Which is where I've come to the conclusion is that like it is something that where everything that was taught to me was from like, do this or you have bad outcomes. That's why I think that was like the main motivator behind me like moving away from those beliefs. And again, I would not call myself an atheist, because I do believe that there is something that created us, right? Like there is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I had talked about this. I mean, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Like when you actually dig into like evolution versus creationism, there's just like I spent years researching the subjects, right? I mean, I mean years, and there's just it's just not even close. It's like the evolutionist believes in has to believe that something crazy happened at the Big Bang as well. It's like, how did the Big Bang start? You're asking for a miracle that's just as big as what Christianity asks for, or creationism asks for.
Which I think from the perspective or from my perspective, it is like people who are atheists who are very much like subscribe to evolution and who think the Big Bang is how things happen. It's like so why give Christians so much grief for believing something that you believe is so unlikely to have happened, but yet you believe in something that is so
we had brought that up. Me and Phil had brought that up. Like Richard Dawkins is just like, why do you care? You know what I mean? Like if you truly believe that this doesn't matter, that nothing matters, that this is all random, everything that's happening, everything in front of us, why do you even care to even say anything? Like I mean, I wouldn't. I'd sit in my home and I'd just concentrate on pleasuring myself. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I mean, just making myself feel as good as possible. And that's that really is that what do they call it? That's that nihilism, right? It's like when you don't actually believe in anything at all, when you're a true atheist in that sense, then you really, there's no reason for you to do anything other than make sure that you feel good all the time.
Right. Yeah, I think it reminds me of that, which I say this in Ricky Gervais, you know who that is, correct? He's a very staunch atheist. He's very much like he did that show. I don't know what the show is called, but he's having a conversation with a woman in the show, and she's like, if you don't believe in anything, then why don't you go around just murdering as many people as you want? And he's like, well, I do go around murdering as many people as I want, which is zero. I don't want to.
Which is what he was. Yeah, I get.
Which is kind of like, I mean, makes a good point there, but at the same time, like, you do have to ask yourself, like, where, like, atheism from a perspective, like, where do your morals come from, right? Like, where do you find the self-conviction to decide what's good and what's bad?
Yeah. This is interesting. We might be getting a little deep here.
Sure.
So we were talking about consciousness, me and my dad, and we were talking about how one of the things that you do is you assume the other person is conscious. I'm talking to you. I assume you're as conscious as I am, right? And
no way to prove that, but
there's no way to prove that, but I have to believe that, because if I don't believe that, the consequences is how do I treat you? You know what I mean? Like if everybody else around me is just a puppet, like, I'd go around doing whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't care at all what you thought or what know. Or I wouldn't even have civil conversations with people. It's not, I mean, not that I ain't grumpy all the time and have bad conversations with people when I'm driving. Anyways, that literally happened like yesterday. Like there's this guy came up racing up behind me. You know what I mean? Like rah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
But anyways.
It's but yeah. I mean it which, like, me as like someone who doesn't necessarily believe everything in the Bible, I I mean, my moral, I guess, like my morals, where they come from is just like, how do I want to be treated, right? Like, what would I feel offended to if someone were to do something for me? Therefore, I'm not,
Yeah.
We learn it in kindergarten, right?
So that's
treat people the way you want to be treated, but.
Yeah, that's apparently the golden rule, right? Is treat everybody how you want to be treated. My question to you is, though, is like, what happens if you run into a true masochist or a true sadist, right? Those people legitimately want to be hurt by other people, and some people legitimately want to hurt other people.
Yeah. How do you deal with that moral qualm, I guess, and like I have the same questions, like because you do have people who, I mean, whether, if you're psychotic, whatever, if you don't understand human emotion, you don't understand like these things, like even if you want them to happen to you, are still inherently wrong.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's a weird thing to think about, because
it's a weird spot that I come to too.
How many people have existed who, I mean, how many world leaders in the world have existed in the world who thought they were doing something good, but the large majority of the world realized that that's not good. Right?
Yeah. That goes back to like we were talking actually just before we started recording. You said the Nuremberg trial thing, because I've brought it up so many times. You know what I mean? And it really is a really important point in history, right? And it really decides. It's like the Geneva Convention, where they come up with rules, and it used to be like that back in the past too, like in the Roman days and everything like that, Greek, Roman. There were rules for the battlefield, right? The two generals would meet up before the battle starts. They'd ride out in front of each other. They'd talk to each other. They'd decide how they're going to do things. What are the rules of the battlefield? You know what I mean? There was like sort of an honor system. It's not that people, didn't do crazy things anyways, but I mean, there are certain points in history where we decide, okay, look, chemical weapons, not allowed. You know what I mean? Not allowed. They're just they're too bad. They just nothing good comes of them. Right. Like, there's no honor in it. It's just it's worst case scenario.
Right. I don't. It is a crazy thought to think. Like where do those I just don't know where the morals come.
Got him. I blew his mind.
It's something to think about, though. It really is how people are so. I mean, some people. I don't want to say. I that is one thing. That is another belief. I try to stay optimistic. And I like to try to think that the majority of people are decent people, right? Which I mean, who knows if that's true or not, especially in today's day and age. I mean, it's so easy to share your opinion online nowadays that you do have so many people who lean so far one way or the other, and it's like it goes to kind of like these people who you see kind of like celebrating what happened. Not to bring Charlie Kirk up again, but I mean the people who are literally going out and like celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and it's like I remember this video came across my page, and it's this mom is recording her two daughters, and they're like,
"Oh yeah, I saw that one."
You already know where I'm going.
You brought that.
That is crazy wild to me. Like where she's like, I have the best news in the world, and they're both immediately like, Donald Trump was killed.
Yeah,
he died,
that was their
and it's
like that was their first guess at what this mom was saying the best news in the world would be.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. How crazy.
Well, and she even like almost encourages it in a way, because she's like, okay, okay, second best news.
Right. She's still saying, the mom is still saying that's the best thing in the world would be like if Donald Trump died. Like, come on.
And not to, I mean, I know this is not necessarily a political podcast, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that Trump says, and I mean, especially now with I feel like he is very much like he drives a lot of the discourse and a lot of like the really toxic discourse in the country in a way. And I don't believe that that's the right way to go about things. Right. And I think when you guys had originally, like the podcast that came out shortly after Charlie Kirk had passed away, you guys had kind of talked about how like you didn't necessarily agree with the way he was going about things, right? Like going to college campuses and talking to these college students who are already so ready to believe anything they hear, and going and trying to debate them when in actuality they really don't know what they're talking about half the time. And that's because they come up and they try to talk to him, and like at the end of the day, most of them kind of just make themselves look inadequate to have the debate, right?
Yeah, and then it just looks like he's making fun of them or something.
And then it comes across as like he's making fun of him, and then he gets cheers from the crowd, like
or like I said in the very first podcast, there was one person he was debating with where she had a good point. She didn't know she had a good point though. Yeah. She had a good point, and it was one of those ones where I was kind of like, oh man, like if she actually kind of stuck to her guns and kind of explained it better, she actually had a good point, right. And and Charlie Kirk's whole thing was, obviously, she was, she wasn't prepared as well as she should have been, and he obviously he had her. So I mean, but I mean, it's interesting. It's like people get caught up in ideologies. You were saying like you believe most people are good. You want to stay optimistic with that.
I would like to think that.
What I believe is I believe this goes back, my dad's gonna kill me for this one. You know what I mean? But
sure.
Like I believe everybody's innocent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I believe basically what you have happening is you have an ideology, because I believe things like ideas, thoughts, they're somewhat alive. They can take on their own personality. You can see it when a movement runs through a civilization. Like think of rock and roll music, right? Sure. There's something we call rock and roll music, right? It grew, it became something. People were obsessed with it. People, basically threw themselves at rock and roll and became, either rock and roll legends or rock and roll fans, you know what I mean? And then, of course, eventually it died down. But, ideologies capture people. And so I think that basically everybody that is, that you would say is wrong or evil or bad or something like that, what it really is they've been captured by an ideology that's ultimately not good for them, and they just don't realize it or something. Or maybe that I mean, this is we were going back to talking about Satan, the idea of Satan and everything like this, which once again I don't like people giving the excuse to Satan, you know what I mean, or using him as a scapegoat. Basically, right. I don't like that. But basically, these ideologies come. Right, and they offer things to people. Money offers things to people, right? Like if you're willing to play by money's rules, you can get to the top for sure. Right. You know what I mean? And your life's going to be a whole lot different than somebody at the bottom who's not willing to do that, right? And so, where your morals have to be stronger than the ideologies that run across you in day-to-day life. And so
which is I mean it's a good point, because and it's funny that you bring up money. I mean, money is a lot of people's like that. I mean, people are all about money, whereas I mean, and some people let that overtake their morals. Some people don't have morals because of money, right? Like, like I mean, if you look at like
if you wanted to be a millionaire, you'd be a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
You would, like, but you aren't willing to do what it takes to be a millionaire.
Right, exactly.
Only the people that are millionaires are willing to do what it takes to be a millionaire.
Right, exactly. It's like and it's different when, I mean, you could think of it like, I mean, corporations like BlackRock, right? Like the largest asset management company in the world is, they're out here. They almost every major company in the United States, even smaller companies, like if they're traded companies, you can trace it back to where BlackRock owns it, right? And it's crazy to think about, because especially when it comes to like housing and stuff. I mean, they're buying up all the single family homes, and they're charging outrageous rent for these. And so like we're at a point in time where it's like it's really hard, especially in our area, and I don't know if you've said where we are.
We say the Midwest.
The Midwest. Okay, yeah, that's good. That's okay with me.
It's funny. It's almost the South, but it's not quite.
It's almost the South, but it is very much. Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, it was definitely this. It was more. I mean, I grew up in the town right across the border.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So I mean, and so it was very much that when I grew up, it was like very much like we're in the South. But now, I mean, living where I live now, it's like it's not the South.
Yeah.
It's very much the Midwest. But yeah, it's just it's crazy how the people who want to, like you said, want to be millionaires or billionaires, like at some point they have to let their morals slide to the side.
Is it right to buy up a bunch of properties and then rent them out for an extraordinarily high price that's more than what people can afford? You know what I mean? And look, I'm not saying you don't have to protect your own your own stuff as well. Like, I mean, so it's like we understand that, but at a certain point, you know what I mean? Why are we? I never actually understood why companies try to raise prices when it never works, right? It ultimately it leads to their failure, right? It's like what a company's really supposed to do is a company, once they see their sales slipping, they're supposed to lower it so more people can buy, and then you get more increased customer, and then you can get retention too, customer retention, and that's what you should be doing. But for some reason, like all the companies, they're just like, oh, well, we'll just charge more, we'll just charge more. You know what I mean?
I was talking to one of our acquaintances at the shop, and it's funny because the company I work for. Well, I work for Walmart. For those of you that I work for Walmart.
He just lets it out.
But they just approve like the 10% discount to like everything, right? Before you couldn't do it on groceries or anything, but now you get 10% off everything. It's funny because then you start seeing people on the Walmart employee subreddit talking about how like they just did their their price changes and like they increased basically like everything by 10% or whatever. So it was like, hey, here's this, but we're gonna sneak the price up a little bit more to counteract that. So it's like it's funny. It's funny how these corporations like they tried it so hard to like, hey, we're doing something so good for you guys, but we need our cut too. It's like, and they're already making billions and billions and billions of dollars a year. It's like, and but I mean, at the end of the day, we do. I mean, I feel like we've kind of gotten sidetracked.
We did.
We've kind of gotten off course, but
we can take a quick break here in a minute. I need another soda. So.
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, we live in a capitalist country, so I mean, you can't really blame them from that perspective. But
the thing is, it's like I mean, capitalism led to like the best things that have ever existed, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's really weird. It's a really hard thing. Mm-hmm. I used to have a couple people I used to talk with at my old work, and they talk about the end of capitalism and how what do they call that? The just when you're at the end of it, when you're at the end of capitalism, as it's starting to become basically a problem for everybody, you know what I mean? As it's no longer a good thing. Yeah. But the interesting thing is the argument that me and Phil make often is that, well, the reason it's like this is because you have a government that provides incentives, and the incentives are paid for because you have companies that pay off the politicians to make those laws so that they have more incentives. Yeah. And so it creates a feedback loop.
Lobbying is a big
lobbying. Lobbying is crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like
well, it's like and you can go back and like look at like the way the government handled COVID, right? Is like I mean they had all these companies who obviously were forced to shut down. Or forced to, whatever. I was working at Best Buy at the time, and I mean, we basically stopped allowing customers in the store, right? And a lot of companies had to do that, and then the government gave them billions of dollars in tax breaks because of it. It's like, and then you could look at that and be like, well, we got a total of $1,200 in stimulus payments or something. It was like cool, man, awesome, and it was a way to like jumpstart the economy again, and it was like. That didn't work. If anything, I mean, things have gotten more expensive since then. But I mean, weird caveat. We're way off topic. But
so let's take a quick break.
Take a quick break. We'll
try to I'm gonna so when we come back, we'll get back more to theological type discussion here. So, all right, be right back, guys. All right, okay, everybody. Hey, we are back, and. So we were having a discussion here while we were paused and everything, but I said something and you ended up,
so I was just
needing to write down a note.
So like I was just saying I don't remember. It's funny, we just talked about it, but I don't remember exactly how we got to that point. But I was just saying, like, I think one of the things that like interested me so much about the way you guys go about the podcast is like you guys show people that it is very much not like my experiences, right? Where it is like my way or the highway, like do this or you go to hell. Whereas like you guys do put it into a perspective of like maybe not everything is the way pastors and churches like explain it, right? Maybe some stuff is better off coming to your own conclusion and interpreting it into your own way, right? Like that's which I think is just something that interested me so much about the way you and your dad talk. Is
my ultimate conclusion is you will get there. You will get to believing basically the same tenets of the Bible, but those things come from someplace else. Those come from a deeper place, where if you're actually investigating it and you're trying to figure out why, then you can come to that conclusion as well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And you're right. And again, it goes to show that like not, kind of plays back into the whole like the whole optimistic thing where you would hope most people in this world are good, and like even if they share a different belief than you, then they're not going to persecute you for it. I guess is the best way to put it. Like,
but once again that's the story. That's history, right?
Yeah,
that's
it is history. That's what happens. I guess
people don't like it when you speak the truth. People do not like it.
And even if it's not just like I guess it goes back into like what is the truth, right? Like what is an objective truth? Like, is there objective truth? I guess is that something that you think is that something you believe in? Like, is there an objective truth, an objective way that things are, or is it personal, right? Like, is it like, do people have, or is truth only subjective, right?
Because
like,
your experience is so vastly different. Even right? With us sitting here next to each other, right? Yeah. I'm looking this way, but you're looking that way,
right?
So even though we're in the same room and we're sharing the same space and occupying the same space, your consciousness is having a completely different experience than mine is. Right. You see what's behind me, I see what's behind you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a rough one, right?
Yeah, it's weird to think about, because like every at the end of the day, like whether you believe there is an objective truth, right, to life in life in general, right, is like at the end of the day, people see their subjective truths. They don't look at it as an objective truth, right?
Yeah,
like, or at least maybe they are looking at it as an objective truth, at least in their mind. But at the end of the day, in actuality, it is subjective, right?
Yeah.
It's, not everybody sees things the same way.
See, that's my whole thing with why I don't like arguing evolution and creationism anymore. Right. Like I said, it was a huge part of my life. I mean, just years, literally years of my life doing that. And
you said you would get on like video games and stuff and like have conversations.
Oh yeah,
with people, we would get heated almost.
Like me and my buddy Tim. I mean, it was literally just day and night everything that we did. We would study it. We would look up their arguments. We'd look up our arguments. We'd research them deeper. We'd watch videos. I mean, it was everywhere. It was everything we did for a while.
Yeah.
And the thing is like you're saying, subjectively, basically, you can't convince people by just presenting facts to them, right? That's not enough. I had said this earlier, at another point in the podcast before. It's like, it doesn't matter how much evidence you pile in front of somebody, they're still not going to believe. That's not what convinces people. Right. You know what I mean? Just giving them the facts of however things are, or however you
made a very good point when you were discussing comments about in the Revelations episode, the one that just came out a couple days ago. You made a very good point to someone's comment. I don't remember exactly what the comment said, but like you were saying, like, you can't prove to me that yesterday happened.
Right? Or it's a huge philosophical one. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I mean, someone had basically said, oh, this is what 13-year-old kids talk about or whatever. And it's like, you have to go back to basics, right? This is what you learn in beginning philosophy, right? Is that what is our proof, for certain things, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're being intellectually honest, you cannot prove to me that yesterday existed. There's no way. It's not possible. There's no evidence that you can present forth that can convince me that yesterday is absolutely 100% a fact. Right. It's not. You literally could be it's like the Matrix. You could be plugged into the Matrix.
Right.
You could have been plugged into the Matrix yesterday, and everything, all your memories are just implanted memories.
Life is a simulation, ladies.
Yeah, life could be a simulation. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? No. I mean, I understand that that's not how we live. I understand that that's not how we're going to act, because it doesn't work, right? It's not going to work if you live that way.
Right.
Like it goes back once again to saying if other people are puppets, you don't believe that. You believe other people are conscious. Because if you did believe everybody was puppets, then the way you would act is, if you truly believe this was a simulation, you'd be acting in a completely different way than how you actually act. You know what I mean? So I understand that. My argument isn't saying that I believe that this is all a simulation or anything like that. What I'm saying though is you also, what I would say to the atheist or the evolutionist is you also have a lot of faith in a lot of things that you don't realize that's what it is. It's the same type of thing. Yeah. And what I'm trying to describe to them is, I'm trying to say our faith is the same as yours. You know, you want to say that our faith is somehow woo-woo, magical, mystical, Bible stuff. You know what I mean? It's not. It's deeper than that. Yeah. We've looked around at the world. We've seen the evidence that we see in our experience and in our life, and then now we're. This is the conclusion that we've come to. Sure. And you've done the same thing. You've looked around at the world. You've seen what you see. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you've come to your conclusion. You know what I mean? Right. And like I said, if you want to argue about that, if you want to argue about the specific things we see, that's one thing. You know what I mean? We can do that all day long, right? I get tired of that though, because it's like,
it's a circular conversation. Yeah, it always ends up in the same spot. It really is.
I did this with I told Phil this, but I didn't bring it up in the podcast. I had actually gotten on ChatGPT. Okay. And I actually had I was just kind of like testing to see what it would say. Yeah. But I started having a creationism, evolution debate with it. Yeah. Right. And it was very much taking up the evolutionary point. Yeah. Right. But I kept going. And at the end of it, I got it to admit that, well, yeah, creationism is more likely. Yeah. Like, it was one of those things. It was very, it was, now once again, I mean, AI is, it isn't what people think it is. Right. I don't know why we call it AI, because it's not an intelligence. Yeah. It's an algorithm. Yeah, that's all it is. All it is a language model. It's an algorithm that just spits out the best response back to you that it thinks that you want. Yeah. So, take me arguing with ChatGPT as a huge grain of salt. Okay, yeah. Don't think that. But but it was interesting to see that I could even do that. Yeah, you know what I mean. That I could actually argue with it, and it presented the same arguments I always hear. It was just like I've been hearing them for 15, 20 years. Yeah. It didn't skip a single beat, man. It was just exactly what I knew it was going to say. The exact
same thing that you've always heard. And it's funny talking about that, because, like, I mean, you have, and I'm going to talk from, like, the other perspective now, like, from people who believe in, and I want to make it very clear that I think creationism does make more sense. I believe that we were created by something or someone, whatever it may be. But it's like this guy was saying, and it just goes back to, like, how we can't really prove anything, and then everybody does have faith in something, whether they believe in evolution or creationism. Is that he was having this conversation. His name's Planet Peterson. He's a TikTok guy, but and he goes about it from a very, like, I don't like that, because he does it very much from, like, perspective of, like, making these people who believe in creationism, or, like, sometimes he argues with like flat earthers, which. That's a whole. We're just gonna. That one I'm not gonna touch. Let's stay away from that. But like he was telling this guy like you can go look at pictures of the Earth, right? Like that. Like there's a Japanese satellite that takes a picture of the Earth like every 30 minutes. You can go look at that. It's public information. Like you go look at that. And he's like, well, no, that because they could fake those. And it's like at that point, like when do you stop having the conversation with someone because they're not willing to accept any piece of evidence that you throw their way, or like even like from hypothetical standpoint, right? Like some people like refuse to answer hypotheticals, and it's like if you can't have a conversation and like at least listen to or like actually think about someone's hypothetical, then like where is the conversation going, right? Like how are we going to get to a point where like either I agree that what you're saying makes sense, or or you say what I'm saying makes sense. You can't, right? Like it ends up being the same circular conversation.
So I just thought of something great here, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I had labeled the first episode of the podcast "Why Talk," and so like, I mean, why debate with anybody anyways? Why talk to anybody about certain things anyways? Like, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Especially if you this is one of my arguments against predestination. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, why is anybody trying to convert anybody anyways? Isn't it just going to naturally happen or anything like that? Like, why go through that conversion process? And because a lot of churches are big on it and everything like that, you know. Well, you know, the ultimate answer is you are trying to make somebody's life better, I guess. You know what I mean? If you have proper motivation, you know,
from like a true Christian standpoint.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. I mean, that's the whole point of like spreading the word.
If we sit here, if we start bringing up like other churches, for sure, there are lots of churches that are definitely going to be like. But then that's the question to them. That's what I'm asking. Like, why are you trying to convert somebody? You know what I mean? Is it for your own benefit, or why do you care? You know what I mean?
Do you think that it may like come from a point of like trying to make themselves feel better about their belief? Like maybe like at what point do you think someone's bias. Like at what point do you think that someone is so like maybe like to the point of being unsure about what they believe in, to the point where like making themselves feel better about it by trying to spread the word, like it kind of like I don't know if you call it
if I can convince other people, then I can convince myself.
You can convince yourself, right? And so maybe it's coming from a perspective of that, where they're all they're doing is trying to convince themselves. That's the opposite way
of how I am. I can convince you of all sorts of crazy stuff. There are good philosophers out there. There are good people that know how to debate that could, like Jordan Peterson says it. He says I used to do debates, and he said I could win any debate if I really wanted to. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you have enough prep time, you know, I feel the same way. I feel you could debate somebody. You could win technically any debate that you want. But like I said, it's not going to convince somebody. Right. It's not going to convince them that they should change their behavior, or that they should do something different, or they should believe something. You know what I mean? And so it takes more. It takes more. Like, what is, you know what I mean? We're getting there. We're in a good spot right now. I think we're trying to find something here.
I think another argument that I can see from their perspective is that, like, if you know, if God is this all powerful being, then or all knowing, all powerful, all loving being, then he has the ability to come down and just show us his existence, right?
Yeah,
like that's
an easy one to go against. The problem is he's so powerful,
right,
that when he shows himself, everybody would instantly worship him, and they'd only be worshiping him because of his power. They wouldn't be worshiping him because they actually loved him, or thought that he cared about them, or something like that.
It would just be this divine display of power that would force everybody.
Yeah,
and
the reason I love my father, you know what I mean, and I hope I eventually my son will love me for, is because of who I am, not what I do for him or for them, or how we, you know what I mean. It's how we treat each other. Yeah, and it's like, you know, hopefully that. You know, I think the argument is God would want the same thing. If you believe God is a father, right, which is what Jesus calls him. Jesus calls him the Father. Yeah. All right. If he's an actual father, then what he's doing here is he's raising you. He's basically raising you, and he's trying to teach you and get you to grow, so that way when you join him in the heavenly realm, you're an appropriate adult or whatever. Yeah, sure. I got you. Yeah,
which makes sense. And so what about the perspective of, like, I mean, talking about correct me if I'm wrong, but predestination is the idea that God already knows who's going to get to heaven, and he knows how everybody's going to end up at the end of the day.
Yeah,
right? Like, it doesn't matter what people do, he knows who's going to go where and how everything. Like, at that point, do people genuinely have free will? Right? Like that's kind of the argument that I have.
Yeah, that goes back to that free will thing. Yeah. And the ultimate conclusion, even my ultimate conclusion, is that we don't have free will, that he is ultimately in control.
Right.
So it's really weird. Actually, I've had this idea before, and it's kind of a weird one. there's a philosophical question that says, can God create a boulder that he cannot lift, right? Can he create a stone that he himself cannot lift? Now, what it is it's a contradiction. It's a natural contradiction, right? The question itself is not correct.
Yeah.
So what I think he's actually trying to do here on Earth, this is wildly speculative, right? And I don't really have any something that could back this up. But what I think he's trying to do here is I think he's trying to do that. I think he's trying to figure out how to give people free will and he himself still be God. You know what I mean? Because he can't do that. He can't not be God. He already is God, right? So what he's trying to do here is he's trying to figure out how to get somebody else there with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how in the world am I supposed to do this? Because, I can't interact with anybody else directly, because if I interact with anybody else directly, they're either going to be consumed by me, or they're basically just going to be robots or slaves or something like that. Like, I would think, because if God's existed for eternity and he's going to exist for eternity, like how bored and how lonesome would it be at the top, when you could just do anything. You could literally do anything. You could anything you want can appear in front of you, right? And the whole point is if you're at that point, God's got to deal with the fact that there has to be a deeper meaning even for him, because he can't, if all he's doing is just constantly, once again pleasuring himself, just constantly making yourself feel good, right? I mean, that's no way to live. I think that's clear when we look at this world, right? We say that being gluttonous is bad, right? Being to a point where all you're trying to do is make sure that you feel good. It's the same thing with lust and gluttony are both two sins where it's like all I'm trying to do is make myself feel good, right? And what that does is it just leads to bad things. It doesn't lead to you and other people having a connection. It doesn't lead to you and other people having experiences together or growing together. And so God probably feels like that too. He's like obviously the deeper meaning of existence altogether is like, I want to have other people to interact with, to talk with, to do things with. I want to give people experiences. You know what I mean? I don't want to be just up here, just try to.
Because it's lonely at the top, I imagine. I mean, as in things in real life, right? Like if you're at the top of the game, whatever it is you're doing, right? Like the top, it can be a lonely place, right? Like if you're the best at something and no one can do it as good as you can. Yeah. Then what's the point of being the best?
You want somebody else that's as good as you,
right?
You want to fight somebody else. You want somebody else that's gonna be able to come up and stand up against you. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I mean, like I said, don't take this as biblical fact. Whoever if people are watching and everything, I'm throwing out a theory out there that I've played around with before. This idea that God could be lonely, and it might not be true. Maybe someone can present a separate argument that is different.
Well, I mean, I've heard people talk about how like God is so above any of that God is above emotion. Yeah. God is above.
That's a good argument,
that, right? Like, and which it is a very good argument. And at the same time, if we were created in God's image, right? Like that's what they say, right? Is we're created in God's image.
That's one of those statements in the Bible that's absolutely wild. Why in the world would you assume that? You know what I mean? That's one of those ones. Whoever wrote that down was making a pretty bold claim. Yeah, you're making a claim that either it's completely wrong or I guess it would have to be right. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a strange word. It's definitely a strange passage.
Do you think God has a sense of humor?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. There are many times where I'll be doing that philosophy, you know what I mean? I'll start joking around and stuff in my head, and there's a few jokes that I'll come across. I'm like, yeah, God would laugh at that.
God would laugh at that.
I mean, that might be heretical to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really do think God has a sense of humor. There, every once in a while, stuff just happens that you can see in day-to-day life where you're like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's weird that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which it was always funny too, like the experiences that I had in church growing up. It was always so crazy to me how like there would be times where my dad and I would get into conversation about like, is like whether or not it was not necessarily like whether it was the right thing to subscribe to the Christian values. We'd get into certain subjects, and then like we would happen to go to church, and then like the pastor would be talking exactly about what we were just talking about. It was like it was such a wild thing to me. It was like
I've had that.
It was like
before, yeah.
It was like okay, well. That's yeah. I mean, I've had experiences like that, and like and that's why like I think those situations have definitely played into why I say that I'm agnostic and not atheist, is because like there's so many coincidences that happen like that on a regular basis that it's like something is out there controlling what happens, right? Like it can't just be that like it can't just be a coincidence, right? Like it just happens too often, right? Like
yeah. I mean, maybe this is like from a point of privilege or something like that, because it'd be much harder to say that once again if you're the African kid that has cancer and he's 2 years old, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's wild. It's like life is so crazy and complex, like we were saying. You know what I mean?
What is the? I think it's like I don't know, somber is, I don't think that's the word for it, but there's a word that like, it describes the way you feel when realizing that every person you walk by, every person that you see through a window, every person you see walking in the street is living a life that is just as complex as yours, right? Like, and that's something to think about, right?
And they're going through all sorts of crazy crap.
All sorts of crazy things, right?
Like everybody has, this is what Jordan Peterson says, everybody has a loved one that's either sick or going to be sick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you yourself will eventually be sick as well.
Yeah.
You're going to get old. You're going to get sick. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so how do you deal with that though? Mm-hmm. And then Jordan Peterson's answer is don't be a nihilist. You know what I mean? Because that doesn't help at all, right? You just worrying about yourself doesn't make things better. But when you sit there and you spend time with other people, you have friends and you have people that you love and you care for, that makes things better because they can be there and they can support you, and you can be there and you can support them.
Yeah, which it's funny because I have something that just happened, which I don't think I've gotten to talk to you about, which I'm not going to go into the whole situation right now on the podcast, but maybe we could talk about it after we record. But I was supposed to be going to this music festival later this month, it was the first weekend of October, and I'm not doing that anymore. Long story behind it, but like point in case, conclusion of that is that I've realized now that like I have so many people in my life right now, especially like whether it's you or our other friends, TJ, Alex, even. And my roommate Ryan, like I have so many people who I consider so good friends now that I have let this guy that I was going to be going with just disrespect me in so many different ways, right? Like, and it wasn't that I was blinded to it, because in my logical brain, I couldn't tell you a reason why I remained friends with him, right? And like, and I've said that to so many people, but it was like it was just he was a friend, and he's not an all bad person. He's been there for me through some hardships and stuff, but it was like the way he was treating me and talking to me the way he was during the last conversation we had, it was like I came to realize like I don't need him in my life, right? Like I have people who, like, I'm not short of friends. I have people who I care about, who I feel care about me, and people who at the drop of a dime, if I needed help, would come to the rescue, right?
Yeah.
Like
there's that faith that me and Dad had talked about,
right?
Faith in another person,
right?
That you say, I can probably rely on that person,
right?
At least for stuff that I might really need,
right? And whereas like logically, again, like he would not be someone that I would call, right? Like if I needed him, right? Yeah. Like he just wouldn't be that person. And not saying that all your friends should. I want to make that very clear. Like not all your friends should be that way. You shouldn't be close with. You keep people around you who you don't feel that closely about, because it is good to have people who at different lengths. But
I mean, there's a huge respect of where you let your friends, they're going to do their own thing. You're going to do your thing. You realize that, and you're also going to give them space to make sure that they are secure and they can do their own thing, right? Once again, it's back to the Bible, take the mote out of your own eye before you take the splinter out of somebody else's. Right. Make sure you're in a good spot, and make sure that's up front too. Yeah, it is important. But anyways, keep going.
It is. Well, it was just it came down to really realizing like this person's just a disrespectful person. He's not he like, I can't say, and like who am I to judge him? But I mean, I just know being as close as I have with him over the last several years. I've known him for like 7 years, and he's just not a great person in general. Like he says a lot of things that are just super disrespectful. He a lot of the time it is his way or the highway. It doesn't matter how you might think it might be done better a different way. It doesn't matter. It's either his way or the highway, and it gets to a point where it does become disrespectful, at a point where even though you're trying your best to stay respectful, it's like he can't just. And I told him, I was like, you need to come off your high horse a little bit, man. I'm your friend. I'm not just some random person to you. Like, I've known you for a long time. I consider you a friend. I obviously, like, you throughout this conversation, I feel like you feel differently, much differently about me than I do about you. And you've made me realize that. And if anything, like, it's almost like a grateful thing, right? Like it's realizing that, like, that even though you may see this person as a friend, how much convincing does it take for them to make you realize that they're not, right? That they're just in it for themselves. And it's very much like, he is very much a person who is just in it for himself, right? Like, and it's like we were talking about earlier, where it's like, if you want to be a millionaire, you'll become a millionaire. It doesn't matter how you get there, right? You'll get to that point. And he's very much a person that, like, if he wants something in life, he's gonna go get it, and he doesn't care what happens to the people around him to make that happen, right?
It's kind of crazy, because there's I mean, you're hitting on so many cylinders here that are also very relatable to me. I mentioned my friend Tim. You're a lot like him, and the way me and him separated was kind of harsh. Like, it was not good. He was mad at me. He was upset. I was acting like a dick. You know what I mean? And looking back, I feel really bad. But we never had a conversation. Right. We never actually explained to each other what was really going on. We both kind of knew, you know what I mean? But it's like, if we would have stopped and actually said something to each other. I mean, I don't know. I was at a weird point in my life. He was too. We had both just gotten out of the army, and we both were like, I mean, that was, earth shattering, to us, being our experience, what it was in the army. But then I'm also thinking about, like, you and I have been knowing each other for about a year now. But I had only met your roommate Kyle a few times. Ryan. Oh my God. I don't know why I can't.
Might as well just change my roommate's name to Kyle.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, it's because we literally have like 3 Kyles at the shop right now. And, we do. It's really funny. Anyways, but Ryan though, it's like the first time I met him, I really wasn't for sure how to read him. You know what I mean? And as we hang out, I'm just like, yeah, this is a good guy. You know what I mean? He's pretty cool. Yeah, he is. And I get the feeling he definitely has radically different beliefs than I do. But
it's funny that you mentioned that. I don't necessarily know that. I mean, it's funny because he's such a good friend of mine. He is like my brother. He has been my best friend for 15 years now. I mean, we met each other in 7th grade, and like, me and him did not like each other when we first met. I will say that. Like, it was funny how much I disliked him back then, and how much I feel like I can rely on him now. Like, he is genuinely someone that if I needed help hiding a body, I could hit that guy up and be like, "Yo, Ryan, we got to go to work, dude." Like, it really is like that. And I mean, and he doesn't. I don't think he has like. He doesn't have radical views like that. Like, I mean, he keeps to himself, and like he's very much like, he's very much of the same opinion as me. Like he's very he reciprocates. Like, if you're gonna be disrespectful.
Yeah, well, that's what I've noticed about him. He's very respectful. I don't know. Like I said, anyways, it's just interesting. We're talking about friends and everything like that, and how. it's basically like you can't really let these beliefs get in the way of friendships and things like that. It's like, you know, when you meet somebody, you know, that you feel, you know, you guys have a connection, or you know, I'm not trying to make this sound like weird or anything like that, but you know, if you have a connection with someone, you know, you kind of know, like, okay, like I want to hang out with that person, I want to be friends with that person, you know, that person's I mean, actually, like, I mean, it's interesting. The first time you and I met, like that first time at the shop, I was like, I like him. I want to be friends with him.
It was funny too, because like, I mean, we you know, we did hit it off fairly quickly. It was kind of interesting how it was interesting how we started hanging. It's funny now because like we've hung out so many times since then, and it's like every time the conversation's so great, right? It really is.
We always have fun, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's always filled with laughter. It's always us having a good time.
Yeah.
Like and it's funny because we're playing games that are sometimes really complex.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how we're like going through it, and it could be really easy for somebody to get like frustrated or just flip the table over. Yeah. But everybody's like real calm about it. Everybody's like, let's do this. Let's get into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny because it's like, I mean, even, I mean, the podcast goes to show is like, I have very different beliefs, right? Like I don't necessarily believe that things in the Bible is exactly how, I mean, people can live their lives however they want, but like, I don't necessarily know that the Bible is but like we can sit here and have a respectful conversation about it, right? Like and you don't hate me for my beliefs, I don't hate you for your beliefs. And like I think that's another reason why this was so, why immediately after watching the first, you know, a few episodes of it, I was like, I feel like we could make a good episode, right? It's because like we can have these conversations and not sit here and like show people that it is okay to have different opinions, right? Like that's and at the end of the day, like I feel like that's why America is so great, right? Is because that's why it's cool to live in a country like this, is because social discourse is a good thing at the end of the day, right? Like maybe not how it is today, maybe not how the mainstream media portrays it to be, and you know, with everything happening and people getting shot for their beliefs, but like, you know, this is what makes it great, right? Like, is being able to sit down, have a conversation of differing opinions, because it's like, and I bring up Charlie Kirk again, but I mean, he I remember one of the clips that like will always stick in my mind about him is that he said, you know, when people stop talking is when bad things start happening, right? Like
that's what I brought that one up. I literally
is like you know, in a marriage, when you stop talking, divorce happens, right? When two differing sides in a country's political landscape stop talking, that's when civil war happens, right? Like, you know, and the thing is like, history has been written, right? And we have history we can go back and look at, and yet it seems like people are so dead set on making it happen again. And it's like making the same mistakes. And it's like do people who are so radically opinionated that they can't see it from the other side, and they demonize them and they dehumanize them, that it's like at what point do you say it's enough, right? Like is their end goal to completely eliminate half of the country, like that like which is just wild to me. It's like going back to what Destiny said, like we need the right to be scared to share their like what how do you claim to be the moral high ground at that point, right? Like where is it? You know, it I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me how some people think like that. But
for sure, it's totally wild. Yeah,
it really is. It really is. Yeah.
And then you, I mean, like I said, the interesting thing is when you look back in history, it really is the people that choose to continue to speak the truth, regardless of the fear or the threat to their lives. It's those people that ultimately come out on top. Yeah, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I mean, you know, once again, you know, not to thump too hard on the Bible, but that's basically Jesus's story, right? He's a guy who's telling the truth, and they kill him for it, right? Yeah. So, right, but ultimately, like, he's the one with this massive religion that's existed for 2,000 years now, right?
So we're kind of veering off in a different a different way this time. So like, what do you say to the argument of like, because this is something that like, before I was an agnostic, I started leaning more atheist. I did for a couple years at least. I was definitely like, oh, that's, you know, like science proves everything. Science, like whatever, blah, blah, like. Can't believe I did that, but you know, it's, you know, because especially where I'm at now, as far as now where my opinions go. But like, what do you think about people who say stuff like, you know, because Christianity in general, when you look at all the other history, is like it's a relatively new religion, right? Like it's not a super old. It's, you know, I mean, you have things like Hinduism and Buddhism that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, right? Like, I mean,
well, this goes back to whether you believe the Bible is actually historically correct
right.
or not, because you don't believe that Christianity started with Jesus. You actually believed Christianity started in the garden.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
so
right. So if you truly believe the Bible and you believe the Bible is a historical document and not a religious document, the problem with other religions like I bring up, I have a ton of them in there, right?
Yeah.
I have a ton of like the North mythology, Greek mythology, and everything like that. None of them, they all have like supernatural beings that did not exist, right? You have, and they take place in places that don't actually exist, right? It's like if you actually climb up to Mount Olympus, like it's
just a mountain.
It's just a mountain. Yeah, exactly. Right. Whereas the Bible takes place in a historical setting with historical figures that we know existed.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it different.
Right.
Now you could say a little bit about Buddhism, because Buddhism also has you know, a character who really existed as far as we know, right? The Buddha actually really existed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, that's a little bit different, but no, I mean, like if you're talking about the age of the religion, no, you believe the age of the religion is the age of the earth.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes a little bit more sense. So at what point, I guess.
But now let me actually talk about some things that I have a hard time with in the Bible.
Sure.
I don't know if prior to the flood in the Bible, so we're talking about just Genesis.
Yeah.
Prior to the flood, basically Moses is writing that this person lived for this long and they had a kid at this age and everything, right? There's a whole series of where he's just saying the ages of when people die. Now, the thing is historically that doesn't seem to quite match up. It seems like it should have been longer. It seems like the ages of the people is too short. It's, you know, it's not random, like when they die, like the times that they die is like a pattern, you know. So there's all sorts of little things like that. So when Moses writes about the flood, because obviously he didn't see the flood, this happened like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years before he was even born. So when he's writing about it, things before the flood, I really like a lot of that stuff. Like you seen that Netflix documentary, the Apocalypse. You know, it's a documentary about a guy that's going around and he's talking about basically the historical records seem to be off, right? The common historical thing doesn't seem to be right, because everything we have that's ancient says that they came from somewhere else, that it was much further back, like the Egyptians. The Egyptians believed that they were the result of a previous civilization before them.
Okay.
Right. That's like in their historical books, right? Yeah. Not what they believe nowadays. You know what I mean? Nowadays, everybody believes Egypt kind of grew and did its own thing. Yeah. But they say, if you read their scriptures and their things, they say that they came from a someplace further back in time. Okay. And so that would be pre-flood. So how big was that civilization pre-flood? It could have been huge. It literally could have been the size of ours. Right. You know what I mean? Nowadays. Right. And they just had a completely different thing, and then the whole world gets flooded, or a catastrophe happens. Yeah. Also, the description of how the flood happens, you know, Graham Hancock, that's his name. Like his theory is like a meteorite came and struck the earth. Right. And that would make sense. A meteorite hits the oceans come like way up. Yeah. Flood the land, right? You'll have storms and natural storms because of this meteor strike, you know. It would change the weather for a long time, you know what I mean? And so then after the fallout of that is done, you know what I mean? There's only a few people left on the planet, and then all of a sudden everything starts to make a little more sense historically. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not not like when I read the Bible, it's like it's like a 1-for-1 exactly historical, especially at Genesis. Then on, you can get a little bit more. Okay, it did directly happen.
So what about kind of talking about Genesis in a way? The new Earth theory, right? Like how there are some Christians who believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, something like that. 10,000 ish.
Years old.
Well, so like, is that something like as a believer yourself? Is that something that you believe in, or do you believe?
It doesn't really matter. So when God created Adam and Eve, they were adults.
Right.
When He creates the Earth, what's it going to look like? It's going to look like an adult.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Sure.
He can make it look like whatever he wants it to be. Sure. Trees already grown, forests already around, rivers, mountains. Okay. So any evidence that this is the thing is like people put up evidence of like geological formations, saying like, oh, the Grand Canyon was carved over, a million years or something like that. It's like, well, God could have just created the Grand Canyon as soon as He created the Earth. Right. It's like, so now you're, it goes back to that idea, like I said, of the fact that yesterday, you don't know if yesterday, you can't really prove yesterday didn't exist. And the reason you can't prove it exists is because God can do literally whatever He wants. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about for sure. It's because that was something that I have a buddy, his name's Andrew, and he's a very devout Christian. He's tried to talk to me about some of his beliefs, and he was very much a believer of like the new Earth theory, whereas my other buddy Pierce, who subscribed to more Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Yeah. They were kind of getting into like a little bit of a heated debate about how I guess when the Bible talks about how God created created everything in a matter of 7 days, right, or 6 days and rested on the seventh, is that days could be construed to mean thousands of years, right? Like that. Like I've heard that argument. People could say that, like, he could have said a day, like the Bible says a day, but like day could mean 1,000 years, right?
A lot of people go back and look at the original text, like in Hebrew, and they say, well, that specific word that they used specifically meant a 24-hour period. Yeah. As opposed to there's another passage where it says a day is like 1,000 years to God. They use a different word for day on that passage in the Hebrew language, not in our language, because our language isn't. Yeah. That's one thing I talk about too a lot. And I was going to ask you about this too. Is it like what you think about because the Bible's been translated through how many different languages now to get it to where it is today? I think I had mentioned this in a podcast, but I mean they took it very, very seriously back then. Yeah. Right. The monks and everything that would write the Bible out and everything, they would force themselves. They would sit and they'd write it, and if they messed up on a period, a comma, a letter, or whatever, the whole thing gets thrown away, and they have to start all over. Interesting. And the reason they did it is because like this is supposed to be a holy book. There are no mistakes, and so they would force themselves. Now nowadays, you know what I mean? Yeah, you could say that we're with the printing press and everything like that, there's more likely to be like an error in there. Sure. But then on the other hand, you have a lot of translators today that also spend an incredible amount of time reading through and sifting through the old verses that they do have. Like when they go through the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think my dad had mentioned this.
I think I remember you.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, ultimately, I could sit here and this goes back to like like we're talking about this isn't as interesting to me. Sure. Because once again, it's just me kind of giving like excuses for like why certain things could be certain way. And I could debate anybody forever about this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And what it really is I think when you read the Bible, I don't think that should be your concentration on whether or not Genesis is historically accurate, you know what I mean, for everybody's life period, you know what I mean? That's not the point of the Bible. The point of the Bible is basically, treat everybody kindly, you know what I mean? Treat everybody with, respect, speak the truth, you know what I mean? Those are the kind of things that we should get out of the Bible, not you know what I mean, like the Israelites really invaded, the Philistines, in whatever 1000 BC or whatever, and conquered them. You know what I mean? I mean, that's all that might add to somebody's belief in the Bible, the fact that it does have historical places and historical figures. Yeah. You know what I mean? But ultimately, right, what you should be looking at is the message that's underneath it, that's saying we're all humans, we're all special, you know what I mean? We're all made in the image of God, and this is how we should treat each other. Right. That's what I think is important.
Yeah. So kind of going back to where I get, because my buddy Pierce that I was talking about, who subscribes to more like the Eastern Orthodox Christianity, a lot of what,
guy's awesome.
a lot of what, like that, if I was going to be convinced to be a Christian, I feel like that's where I would probably lean towards, is because like a lot of what he talks about, it does make sense, right? And but what do you think about people who are like, I guess. I forgot where I lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say?
So I had actually done a lot of studying on. I studied what Jewish people believe nowadays. Yeah. Like I watched. It's probably a couple years ago. Sure. I told you I had another podcast. Yeah, and it was kind of for that. I ended up listening to like a lot of like Jewish scholars. I listened to a lot of Eastern Orthodox scholars, and it's really interesting. Some ideas that they have that are really, really neat. We had talked about Satan, earlier. Yeah. One of the things the Jewish scholars said when they were talking about him is look, God has to have an angel that does the dirty work, that has to, you know what I mean? Someone has to do the the hard things that have to be done, right? Someone has to step forth and be the prosecutor, right, of people. And so that's just what Satan is. Satan is just the one who's doing the hard parts that God needs to be done. You know what I mean? He's not someone that's rebelled against God and is now trying to actively try to destroy God, because that doesn't make any sense, right? And so once again, I'm not saying this is necessarily what I believe, because I've already made arguments for the idea that ideas have a personality and have a consciousness and can somehow work its way through society. So I'm not saying that necessarily, but I've heard it said, you know what I mean? I've heard scholars make the argument that that Satan is he's just a he's just an angel doing his job. You know what I mean? Hate him for it if you want, you know what I mean? But it's not like he's rebelling against God.
Okay. So let me ask you, so from that perspective, which I know you've said that's not necessarily your belief, but like if you were to continue arguing for that from that perspective, what do you think about like hell, right? Like
because now we get into what I really believe here. Right. Now once again, I talked already about what God seems to do in the Bible. This is what he does with Moses. He puts him out in the desert, right? And then he does it with the Israelites. He puts them out in the desert for 40 years. During that 40 years, the Israelites are going through a transformation. The old people are dying off. Everybody that has bad ideas is dying off. The people that are surviving and are learning how to live off of the land are making it. They're growing stronger. They're having kids that are now stronger because they were stronger, and it builds up a civilization, right? So in the same thing with like when Moses is out in the desert, he's crossing the desert, he's basically going through hell. The same thing with Jesus. Okay. Jesus goes through the desert for 40 days, right? Yeah. Imagine living out in my backwoods for 40 days. Pretty rough. Man, dude, it would suck. It would suck. Yeah. So what happens is people are forced into these situations, and what it does is that situation teaches you, and it makes you grow, right? And it makes you become a stronger person. Yeah. So we have a lot of bad ideas here on earth, right? So one of them would be like money, right? Money, some people, like you said, are obsessed with money, right? Yeah. So when you get to heaven, a place where anything can happen, everything can happen, you basically have godlike powers. Imagine you have, minor godlike powers, like you're basically Zeus, right? And you can wish anything in front of you at any point in time, food, just money, girls, whatever, right? The thing is those people that here on earth believe in money, when they get up to heaven, what are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
They're all their skills have been based off of how things work in this world, right? Not how things are going to work in the next world. And so therefore you're going to be in hell, right? You're going to go through a learning period where it's going to suck. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be up in heaven. You're not going to have any friends because nobody cares about your money anymore, right? Like somebody comes up to you and be like, "Oh, here I've got a chest full of gold. Come be my friend or whatever." Or
it's
something
like if
that.
you're in heaven, you don't need that.
Yeah, I'm like I can summon my own chest full of gold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, and this goes back to what I was saying about God. What God wants is God wants us to have connections. God wants us to do things together, have experiences together, have fun together, that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to want to do. So so once again, you go back to what hell is I think hell is a learning transitional period where you're going to be learning what it's like in the real world, in the, not the real world, in the rest of eternity, right? Where your ideas that you had here suck. You know what I mean?
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So is it you said that this is kind of what you're talking about what you actually believe, right?
Yeah, it's I'm drawing, ultimately I'm not convinced of anything. Like realistically, if you're getting down to what I really, 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 really believe, I'm not for sure yesterday existed. Right. Yeah. But I'm drawing ever closer to that conclusion because it's what I see in the Bible.
Yeah,
I see it happen basically to all the characters in the Bible. It's what happens to Jonah. Jonah goes into the whale for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that's like being in the stomach of a whale? Yeah, it's hell.
Yeah.
It's hell. It's obviously hell.
Yeah.
And the same thing with David hiding out in caves while Saul is chasing him. It's just on and on and on and on. You constantly see, it's that my dad talks about the shadows and the types of Jesus, right? You see those, and it all leads to Jesus too. Jesus himself is dead for 3 days. Now, I don't believe Jesus went to hell for 3 days, but he was dead for 3 days. And because, you hear Christians say that, they'll say, "Oh, he went into hell for 3 days," or whatever. But it's definitely this idea that, you go into a different place. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they get thrown into the fire. Mm-hmm. That's hell. Daniel gets thrown into the lion's den. That's hell. You know what I mean? And sometimes you come out unscathed. If you're a good person that believes in God or believes in the ideals and how you should treat people and everything like that, you come out unscathed. Yeah. But if you're not, you go in, you get burned up. You know what I mean? And then when you come out, you'll be changed. You'll be a different person, but you'll still come out. You know what I mean? That's
you don't necessarily believe that hell is like hell can be an eternal resting place for someone.
My thing with that is you could see some people being very, very holden in their ways on purpose. Like you could intentionally, and this goes back to where you're back at Satan being an actual, like, someone that's trying to rebel against God, and so therefore he's in hell. He'll probably be in hell forever because he's intentionally, purposely like, no, I'm not gonna change, or no, I'm not gonna hold to your ideals. Yeah, so there could be an argument made for that hell could be a permanent place for some people. But for some reason, I just think there would always be a way to work your way out of hell if you were willing to do the work,
willing to do the things that it took. Yeah. Which is. It's interesting to think about. So what do you? I mean, and I know most of the time when you're talking about things like you see like demonic possession and stuff, right? Like that, like what, like where does that kind of fall in? Yeah. In your beliefs, I guess is the question.
It's very hard. You basically, when you see them, people go crazy. People's minds break and stuff.
They do.
And like when you listen to actual exorcists from the Catholic Church, they say that they do everything they can to first try to diagnose the person with a mental disorder.
They send
them to doctors. Yeah. they make sure that that person is not having something that can be easily explained. Right. And I think the majority of the times when you see people on the streets going crazy, you know, I mean, you see people on drugs going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like demonic possession.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's that opened up my eyes for sure. Yeah. That's.
You actually went? You went to Portland?
I've been to Portland once. Yeah.
We've driven through, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah. So I was in Portland. I don't know. It was probably like 2019, I think. We had went up there. It was like one of the last times that I had went to go see my dad's side of the family. Yeah, man, it's different there. It's it is crazy. I mean, you're walking down the street and you just walk past like piles of human.
And this goes back to what I was talking about, how ideas and ideologies can work its way through a civilization.
Yeah.
And those ideas can make you look demonically possessed from somebody else. It's almost like it is. It's almost like that ideal is a bad ideal, right? Is what you would say.
Right.
And so it would appear to be a demonic position to someone who is actually looking out for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can have that. Now, on the other hand, now here I'm going to make the opposite argument. Now, when you listen to those Catholic exorcists, and they are really convicted that they saw some crazy shit.
They are.
Like they saw people walking up walls.
Yeah.
And they'll sell and they sound incredibly believable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they'll just be like, yeah, it happened.
Yeah. Well, you have things like what was the movie? I mean, it was a movie that came out not long. It came out quite a long time ago. It was an early 2000s movie. It was Exorcism of Emily Rose or something like that. Where it was it was a movie based on a true story about an exorcism that happened, and in the movie they include like the actual like audio recording of the exorcism, right? And it's like when you think about that, like when you listen to that audio recording, it's like wow, like it and obviously, like, you know, someone with a scientific point of view would just think that person's crazy, but like man, they like
mental, it's a that once again that's the argument is that it's a mental thing. It's their brain is broken, their brain has gone off the rails, you've reached psychosis, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, I've kind of experienced a little bit of that in my life, you know, where I've seen somebody that has basically had psychosis, and it's scary.
Yeah, I definitely have. Yeah, I mean, I've I had this guy. I'm not gonna say his name, obviously, but he was a good friend of mine for a while, and there was one night where he just kind of went off the rails, man. Just snapped a little, and it was I mean, we were partaking in something, and you know, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up with text messages, and he's texting me while sitting like 4 feet away from me. And he's like going off about like Corey, we've been put into a different reality, like blah, like just goes on and on and on about how like he genuinely thought like he was God now, like he was like, we've been put into a better reality. You were with like, and I remember specifically like these text messages were like you were there with me in my testing period, Corey. Like you like there's a reason why like the parents are so cool in this generation now is because you were with me there, and like they've put me into a new reality and blah 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 this and blah 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 that. And it was like in actuality he was just going through a manic breakdown, but you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. That night got very, very bad for him. After we had taken him home, he ended up actually having like a full like mental breakdown, like to the point where he was in like a catatonic state in the hospital, and like I mean, he got tased by the police that night. I mean, he went through it that night, and it was like, that was another thing where it was like I didn't realize how genuinely fragile some people's brains are, right? So how like and when you are convicted in your beliefs, right, and like playing into religion, like what happens when a deeply religious person breaks like that, right? You know, you could get to that point where like the only conclusion is a demonic possession, right? And it's like
that's what
you kind of understand how things like that happen. So
you know, Yeah, and maybe that's why people naturally try to find excuses and try to go away from believing in more, at least like heavy morals, right? You know what I mean? Because if you do believe in morals, this is what Dad was saying. He said the law, sin is like a mirror, right? It forces you to look at yourself. You know what I mean? Because if you truly have morals, you know what I mean, where you're saying this person has to act this way, you should be looking at yourself and saying, how should I act as well? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it could break people. It could absolutely break people. And maybe that's why people don't do it. Maybe that's why people go and try to deny or whatever, or try to say there's nothing. You know what I mean? There's nothing, because then it is almost like
it's like the easiest way out, right?
Yeah,
like it's to say that there is nothing that happens. There is no creator. There is no nothing after we die. You know, it's like after we die, it just goes back to being like how it was before we were born, right? Like nothing. Like you don't have any recollection before you don't have any recollection prior to being like 3 or 4 years old, right?
I have a theory that could be just how this life is set up. It could be you've existed for eternity yourself already, and that we purposely came to this world to have that experience.
It goes into like another one of those crazy like wild theories that I see. I forget what the name of the theory is called, but it's like any time that like you would die in an instant, right? Like your soul or your consciousness is immediately shunted into another version of yourself.
Yeah, I've
right?
heard that one too.
What is it? It's like it's something immortality is what they call it. I forget what it's called. Quantum immortality, I think, is what they call it. It's like where you
based on the show Quantum Leap.
If that's where it comes from, then yeah. But like I remember reading about this guy on Reddit who like went through like a whole like mental break because of it. Like he would like trying to prove it to where it was like he was doing so many things to try to prove this theory of quantum immortality where you have like you get to a point in your life or just a moment in your life where otherwise you would die, or that body that you're in, you would die.
You're about to get in a car wreck,
but then instead, right before it happens, your consciousness is shunted to another version of yourself.
And you just where you miss the car wreck,
you just miss the car wreck and you keep driving, right?
I've heard this one before.
Yeah. So like that's another thing that's like that is like, again, going back to this guy, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who know who it is, but you know, you can go and like they still the Reddit post still exists, and you can literally just watch this dude just like dive into psychosis over it, basically, right? And like it's crazy to me how
that's what real philosophy like. I already mentioned on the podcast, but I mean, my dad had asked about philosophers go crazy,
and it was who was the guy that you had talked about on the podcast?
Well, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche
specifically, he intentionally, purposefully isolated himself. Basically, he had, I don't know if he had quit his job or he got fired at like Boston or something like that.
Yeah,
and he intentionally spent the next 10 years trying to be as isolated as possible. He didn't go out and like just stay in a cabin in the woods, but he purposely was trying to avoid people and trying to do all that, because when you do good philosophy, I mean, you run into all sorts of really cool, crazy ideas and everything like that, but it does take a vast amount of mental work. Like you're exercising your brain, and it can hurt. It can start to get to a point where you feel yourself kind of slipping, and you're kind of like, nope, I can't keep going. My brain ends up actually shutting down by the end of the night and just saying like, nope, no more. You can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which I think that's happened to me a couple times where like I've spent like whether I find myself alone or whatever, it's like there have been times where I've kind of like tried to take a deep dive into like trying to convince myself or trying to come to a conclusion of what might be what reality might be, right? Like, is there a God above? Is there is the things that the Bible says true, or like can it be true? And like I always come to the same conclusion that like I think there are some things in the Bible that are true, but I think what doesn't make sense to me is that if God is this ever-loving person, I don't want to say person, but like if God is this ever-loving
consciousness,
being, it is a conscious being, and He loves us all equally, and we're
well, it's really interesting. You keep when you said it the first time, you said his three aspects. You said it right. He's all-knowing,
all-loving, and all-powerful.
No,
right?
not all-loving though.
Oh, not all-loving.
Not all-loving. That's not one of the three aspects. It's all-knowing, ever-present, and all powerful.
Oh, right. Yeah. Omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. That's,
yeah. The ever loving or the all loving is an interesting one. Where does
that come from?
Yeah. Who knows?
I guess because that was something that's always been I feel like has always been a major part of sermons that I've listened to is that God is ever loving, and I guess so I guess does the Bible say that? Like, does it ever say that he is an ever loving being?
I'm trying to think of a specific one,
something
like that. Yeah, once again, I would say what I believe, and I can't pull up a specific verse. What I would say is, if God is a father, right? Fathers love their children. You know what I mean? That because once again, that's what I really believe, or at least that's the closest I can get to truly believing is that God is a father, right? And so you would say, your father loves his children.
Sure. So just off of a quick search, just because Bible said it. Well, it's not loading. But,
that's all right.
I guess the biggest one that people come to the conclusion of God being ever loving is John 3:16. So I do know that one.
Of course.
I feel like everybody knows that one, whether you're a Christian or not. You know what John 3:16 says. But I guess that's that based off what I just saw off of search results was that's
the
usually
interesting thing is it says God so loved the world, right? This is another one of those ones where I think it like kind of like that everybody eventually gets to heaven. It's like, God, it doesn't say God loves his believers. You know what I mean? It says God loves the world. It means he loves everybody, right? You know what I mean? As opposed to just a few people or something like that. So that's another one that like I can kind of monkey around and say that like, well, that's an argument against that predestination like we were talking about. You know what I mean? That's another argument to say that, well, he cares about everybody, and eventually he'll go and find everybody, even if they are in hell.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are denominations of Christianity that do believe that like their whole belief system is built around predestination, right? So like Jehovah's Witnesses, right? It's like a big one,
absolutely.
right? So
there's I think even the Mormons are kind of like that too.
Mormons,
Mormons, don't ask me for specifics about other religions. You know what I mean? But I think there's quite a few. Yeah, there's definitely quite a few.
Because you did say, I think it was in the episode with Callahan. It was you don't consider Mormons to be Christian. Like Mormonism.
Yeah, they're technically a different religion.
Is a different religion.
Ultimately, they do not believe this.
Yeah. What was the guy's name? It was John.
Yeah, John Smith.
John Smith. Yeah. So,
is it Joseph Smith?
Joseph Smith. I got it. Yeah, I think that sounds
Sorry.
more. That sounds
John Smith Pocahontas. No. Joseph Smith.
Yeah. So which that kind of some of their beliefs were very wild, right? Like I remember and not up until like I which correct me if I'm wrong. Someone in the comments correct me if I'm wrong, but like up until 2013 when the Mormon Church actually disavowed the belief. They believed that people of African descent that was a punishment, right? Having black skin was a punishment, right?
Yeah.
It was because they were like they were like the inhabitants of heaven during the scuffle between Satan and God. They were like the neutral parties, right? They were like the fence setters is what they call them. So when they were put onto Earth to live human lives, they were punished with having black skin, right?
Yeah. So that'd be an example of how they're not Christians.
Yeah, right. It's like I remember reading it, and again, it which apparently now again I think it was in 2013 the church has officially disavowed that opinion, but still knowing that was one of the core beliefs that they had was so crazy to me. That was
I was about to say it was probably in the podcast. I don't want to end on that though.
Oh yeah. No, let's talk about something else for a second. Let's get to closing argument or closing statements here.
Like I said, the thing that makes Christianity different is it does have some historical, backing and precedence.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is the underlying message of what you're looking at is like everybody has value, everybody's an image of God and everything like that. It's like there's not many other religions that actually truly believe that. I mean, like Buddhism is kind of cool and interesting. I like a lot. I find it interesting, although I don't know, But it's this idea in Buddhism where you're basically supposed to like rid yourself of attachment to anything at all. You know what I mean? And it's funny. I brought up that movie, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Have you ever seen that movie?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about this outside of this.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So they're Buddhists, right? Or well, they believe in the same thing. They believe they're trying to reach nirvana by essentially ridding themselves of want of anything and everything, right? But the main character, he reaches that state, and then he realizes, oh, there's nothing here. You know what I mean? Like, I like feeling. He specifically, he loves a woman. He loves a woman, and then the last thing he says to her as he's dying, because she says, save your energy and reach nirvana again. Reach nirvana and go back to where you're supposed to go. Yeah. And he's all, no, I'd rather stay here by your side than go there. It's like, it's absolutely incredible. And I honestly think that's what the Bible's about. It's about, we'd rather be together, all of us. We'd rather all of us get to a place together where we're all in heaven as one, as opposed to trying to do our own thing. I think the message is right is if you're selfish and you're out for yourself, like what are you going to do in the next life? You know what I mean? Right. So I don't know. No, I hope that made sense.
No, it does. It definitely does, and it's comfort. I guess my way of like comforting, like where my beliefs lie, is knowing that at the end of the day, what the Bible says, and if Christianity is the way, right? Like if what the Bible says is actually how we're supposed to live our lives, and that's what we're being judged upon, then at the end of the day, like, there's comfort in knowing that I'm a relatively decent human being. So, I mean, I guess that's like, I guess it is comforting to know. Not that I don't really deal with the whole internal struggle like I used to when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, it's comforting knowing that
I definitely agree with you. Fear is not an appropriate motivator. Right. Now, there's actually a Bible verse that says, "Hey, if you get into heaven, however you get into heaven," you know what I mean?
Oh, really? Okay.
Kind of. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Sure. You know what I mean? But it basically says whether you get to there by fear or whether you get to there by love, it's either way.
Either way, you've made it to heaven.
At least you've made it. You know what I mean? Well, Jesus says, hey, if your right hand commits you or causes you to sin, cut off your right hand, right? You know what I mean? But I don't think fear is an appropriate motivator. Fear will not get me to do much. Now, pain is an appropriate motivator. Pain will get me to do a lot. But fear is not an appropriate motivator, and I don't think it should be. I mean, as a father, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want my kid to do things because he's afraid of me. I want him to do things, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, hopefully, he'll believe that I am doing the best thing possible to make him into the best person he can be. You know what I mean? Right. So, hope that all made sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Good?
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
If someone is still watching, which I'm hoping there are a few people, because this was actually a really good one. I enjoyed this a lot. But if there are people still watching, hey, like, comment, subscribe. Or on YouTube and Spotify, although the YouTube is kind of now overpassed Spotify. So yeah, and comments. We would love to hear comments. I love to read out comments and have discussions with other people as well. So, Phil's still on vacation for a few more days. So we'll actually have one more guest on before we get back to Phil, and then we'll see how things go from there. So thanks very much, guys. Awesome. This was Corey.
Bye, guys.